Hi there, it's Laura here from Get Organized HQ, and today I want to talk about something I have seen going all over YouTube and really the entire web, and that is the question of, is minimalism dead or dying or going away or not trending anymore? So let's tackle that question. But before we dive in, take a second and give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the organizing videos we have coming soon. Before I answer this question, I want to first answer another question that I think is really important, and that is minimalism dying or dead to me? And meaning you ask yourself the same question. That's really the more relevant question, because no matter what is happening online, what is actually trending and less trending, what really matters is what's happening for you in your personal life. And I feel like we all go in cycles. We all have different things going on in our life and realizations at different times. So no matter what's going on in the World Wide Web or world as a whole, you may have your own story in your own personal life, and that's okay. So maybe just yesterday, you even discovered that minimalism was a thing. And now you hear, uh-oh, what if that trend is kind of going away? That's okay. If you heard about it, you listened about it, it resonated with you, and it sounds like something that would help you, then go ahead and dive in. Don't worry about what anyone else thinks or what is going on in the world as a whole. It really matters what's important to you and what resonates with you, where you are in your life. Now, the second thing I feel like I should kind of address before I try to answer the question is, am I a minimalist? And I am someone who talks about organizing all the time. Like, I love organizing, as you can see behind me and many other places in my house. Organizing is my thing. I am also a huge fan of decluttering. I have been known to kind of ruthlessly declutter, including maybe something that we might need. Like, I kind of err on the side of decluttering too much, and I love that. I do not like spaces that are like really, really full. Like, I like lots of space and breathing room. That said, I have never really considered myself a true minimalist, and I still don't. I think I have some minimalist tendencies, especially like when it comes to decluttering. I can pretty easily let go of most things. There are a few exceptions that aren't really serving me that I don't love. But I still have a lot. I still have a big house. I still have a lot of hobbies, and I keep a lot of different hobby supplies for the ones that I actually use. Like, I have a few cake decorating supplies, cookie decorating supplies. I do some like making greeting cards with rubber stamps. I like home decor, and so I have some chalk stuff, like to make those cool chalk signs. I have 2 different cutting machines, and I use both of them. They make vinyl labels. They make all sorts of things. I love making banners for my kids' birthdays out of paper. Like, I keep a lot of things on hand, and I like that, and I plan to continue that. I also have an entire video that I'll link to down below about why I do not have a capsule wardrobe and why I actually have a lot of clothes, and I like it that way. That may change at some point, and I still subscribe to the theory that I do not want stuff that I don't love and use. But I kind of have a decent amount of stuff, so I don't really consider myself a minimalist. However, I don't think we should get too caught up in the labels. I think it's possible to still be a minimalist and have a lot of stuff. So for some people, maybe I am. For some, I'm not. It doesn't matter. And if you are feeling like, I kind of want to be a minimalist, but I'm not sure if I qualify, there's no board to submit your minimalist application to. You can declare yourself that no matter what. Whether, you live in a 400 square foot tiny home with 2 pieces of furniture and a plant, which is kind of like the traditional minimalist vibe. Oh, and you only wear, black shirts or something. You can call yourself a minimalist. Or if you live in 8,000 square foot mansion with lots of furniture and lots of things, you can still call yourself a minimalist if you're trying to surround yourself only with those things that you use and love, and if you're going in that direction of less. So that totally counts. Now, whether or not I think it's dead, what I have seen is a trend toward what I would call intentionalism, and a lot of people are actually calling it that. And I have watched multiple videos on this topic and on people's personal journeys where sometimes they are personally backing off a little bit from minimalism, or maybe they took it too far or things are changing for them. And it's really more about being intentional. And while I think it's more trendy, let's say, for lack of a better word, to call it intentionalism at this point, I think it's always at its heart been about that. It's always been about not about having as little stuff as humanly possible. Like, you are not going to get a prize for having the least amount of stuff. I've seen a few bumper stickers that say like he or she who dies with the most fabric wins, for like people who sew, which is, you know, just to be funny. Like, lots of seamstresses collect a lot of fabric, and the inverse is not necessarily true either. Like, if you're a seamstress, you don't get a prize for having the least amount of fabric either. Like, it's about what works for you. So it's always been about being intentional. But now I think people are just realizing that more. And I think there's more of a realization that it can be taken too far, and that you can start to have this feeling or this sense that somehow you're a better minimalist if you have like the least amount of stuff possible. And if you just keep getting rid of stuff and doing less stuff and less and less. And at some point, you may lose sight of why you started in the first place and come back around to realize it's really about being not necessarily minimal, but intentional about what you keep and what surrounds you and about your activities. I would also say another wonderful trend that I think that I've seen, and I think it is just wonderful, is thinking about minimalism, not just in terms of the stuff that we have, but also in terms of like our activities and time. So you can declutter your calendar, you can declutter what you have going on in your life, and this is just as important as your stuff. So being intentional with your entire life, not just the things that are in your home. And I think that's wonderful. Another reason I think people may be feeling this way is that a lot of times we think that decluttering is just going to solve all of our problems. I think it can solve a lot of problems. I think it's wonderful. I'm all for it. And the more clutter you have right now, the more life-changing it's going to be if you go toward the more intentional or minimal route and free yourself of all of those things. So it is wonderful. Like, I don't want anyone to think that it's not and that you shouldn't do it, but it doesn't solve all your problems. And I think sometimes we can think, because I know I have done this myself, where I hear about or I read about someone who, you know, was feeling overwhelmed with life and really stressed, and then they got rid of like 80% of their stuff, and now they feel amazing. Like, their life is wonderful. And I'm like, okay, I'm pretty minimal. Like, I got rid of a bunch of stuff and I don't feel amazing. And I think sometimes we put too much emphasis, or we give too much credit to the lack of stuff. And a lot of times when people make that really radical decision to like, not just, you know, declutter one closet, but to like really reduce the amount of their possessions, that came from somewhere inside them that, you know, that's not a small change. And so whatever that was also prompted them to make other positive changes. So it wasn't just less stuff that produced the results that they loved. It kind of all goes together. So I think we need to recognize that while having less stuff and even like decluttering our activities or our calendar is wonderful, it can be a very good tool, it's not all that it's about. If you're feeling currently stressed, that can be one source of stress and one huge way to help with it. but it's not the only way. So you might also need to make other changes as well, and those may even be easier when you have less stuff. But I think if you started this minimalism journey and you thought it was going to solve everything and it didn't, that's okay. You're not alone. I think some people are realizing that, but this is what's really key. It does not mean that minimalism in and of itself and striving to have less is bad or doesn't help at all. It just means that's only one piece of the puzzle. So I think it's important to recognize that. And with that, I would encourage everyone, and I think almost anyone can adopt some of the principles of minimalism, of being surrounded only by that stuff that you love, and especially of the idea of intentionalism, intentional living, not just kind of living by default and allowing whatever into our calendars, into our activities, into our space, but being really thoughtful about what we allow in. I think that's the way to go. I think that is trending, and I think that will never go out of style.